down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family, and welcome to another Tanakh review, another Parsha review. My name is Uzziah Lewy, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York, giving honor, glory, and praise to the Most High, King of the universe, for life, food, clothing, and shelter, thanking the Creator of heaven and earth for my life and the life of all of you, cold baked Yisrael scattered in the four corners of the earth. I'm grateful to the Most High God for another day of life. I pray that the Most High God will continue to bless each and every one of you. Wishing everyone an early Shabbat Shalom and praying that the Most High God will continue to bless each and every one of you. How's everyone feeling out there? I hope that everyone is well, and I hope that everyone is ready to receive this message. And first, before I start, I'd like to send out my condolences to the teacher of this actual show, even one of my teachers, Nasik Zurishaddai Yehudah, who lost one of his children this past week, his eldest daughter, I believe, at this point. So we pray that the Most High God will bring Nasik comfort during this time. And he's still here with us doing the lesson. So it's a testament to his dedication to the Most High God. And I know him, he wouldn't want to make this about himself, but I feel that is appropriate, to show him, to send out my condolences on behalf of me and the whole congregation, BINAH, CHOKMAH, and those of you that are on the chat. I'm sure that you will send out your condolences to him and reach out to him if you haven't heard yet. So, Nasik, I pray that the Most High God will bring you comfort, and I pray that the name of your daughter be for a blessing every time that is spoken. So we're going to move straight ahead, and we're going to go on with the lesson of Eiquev. And for that, I'll pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, Nasik Zurishaddai Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Okay, not bad considering the circumstances. Thanks very much for the condolences. And one of the things I could rest a little bit easier, because she's 52 and she actually, made transition into sleep. So, and in her own bed, so there's no outside strange thing, criminal activity or anything like that. So, and that being the case. It's easier to accept, the Creator's judgment because God's a true judge. All right, so that being said, with that, I'm moving straight ahead into Eiquev. And before I go into Eiquev, I was discussing things earlier in the week from Ekanon with several people, and they had questions from what I had said earlier. And one of the questions I addressed was when Moses made the statement in the beginning of Ekanon. Let me just go back to it and just bring it out right quick. And in the 26th verse of the third chapter of Ekanon, it says, "But the Lord was wroth with me for your sakes, and hearken not unto me, and the Lord said unto me, let it suffice thee, speak no more unto me of this matter." All right, so, and I made the statement, and I was sharing, mostly coming from my sons and other people, about how could a leader blame a people for something, that they did, and say it's for your good that I'm getting punished like this, or being denied like this. And most good leaders, and Noah Mo being the most meekest man on the whole earth, that's not pretty much his mindset. So I'm just going to revisit it just for a moment. And I shared with my sons and them a story, but I didn't share it on the on the last talk, but I shared the story before in other episodes of my teachings, and it goes something like this here. There was a little girl that had a doll baby that she was so fond of, and she was playing with the doll baby, and it was really precious out of all her toys. And then one day, she was playing with the doll baby, the doll baby, the arm broke off. So she was so upset, and she tried to fix it, put it back together, and she couldn't do it. She tried everything she knew how to do to put the arm back on and make it, be like it was in the beginning, but wouldn't stay on, wouldn't stay attached. So our big sister said, "Well, that doll's done with. You might as well get another doll to ask, your father get you another doll." And she said, "I'm gonna pray to God." And the sister said that God don't answer prayers like that. And nevertheless, the younger sister prayed hard. When she went to go to bed, she prayed very, very hard concerning her doll baby and what that arm be fixed as a young little girl. So, you figure around 5 years old, so she's praying very hard about getting the doll fixed. She woke up in the morning, ran straight to that doll and picked it up. See, the arm was still, off the baby, wasn't fixed. And she told the big sister looked at it and said, "See, I told you that God don't answer prayers like that." And the little girl said, "Yes, he did. He said no." A lot of us can't accept the no answer in prayer. A lot of times, when we think our prayers may not be answered, it's the no's that we refuse to accept. Moses asked, and according to the gematria, which I mentioned before, several times, basically calculate 515 times from the gematria of Elkanah. So it was difficult to accept the no answer in life. But like it is, and what I did say last time was pretty much that it's because if God, give me the no answer and tell me that this suffice that you could at least see the land, but you can't go over there, answer me in part, this God is still worth serving. And sometimes the no's is for our benefit as well. So when Moses said it's for your sake, that is teaching the people that you still serve God. No matter how bad things get in your life, no matter how tumultuous it be in life, you still serve God, and He's worthy to be praised. So that's one of the stories I neglected to say. Now we're going to fast forward. We're going to have a repeat on some areas in here, but with Eiquev starts at the 7th chapter, the 12th verse of Deuteronomy. And it goes in the Masoretic text. I got to make sure I always say the Masoretic text, because sometimes in a King James version, the text may not be the same. So I'll just, when I'm speaking, but you're going to have the same stuff written down. It might be, verses or something different between King James version and the Masoretic text from time to time. So you just keep reading if you don't see it. And where I might, say the break is at. And it goes all the way to the 11th chapter, and it concludes at the 25th verse. So it's a lot of stuff being said here, and there's another part of the Kriyat Shema, the recitation of the Hero Israel. And I'm going to focus on that a little bit, but so much other stuff here, I just want to gloss over it for a moment, and then focus on the comparison of the Shema in that area. So, and the 12th verse opens up, "And shall come to pass, because ye hearken to these ordinances," and it shall come to pass, because ye hearken to these ordinances, and keep and do them, that the Lord thy God shall keep with thee the covenant and the mercy which he swore unto thy fathers. And he will love thee and bless thee and multiply thee. He will also bless the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land, thy corn and thy wine and thy oil, the increase of thy kind, the young of thy flock, and the land which he swore unto thy fathers to give thee. All right. And then the 14th verse, thou shalt be blessed above all peoples. There shall not be a male or female barren among you or among your cattle. And the Lord will take away from thee all sicknesses. He will put none of the evil diseases of Egypt, which thou knowest, upon thee, but will lay them upon all them that hate thee. And thou shalt consume all the peoples that the Lord thy God shall deliver unto thee. Thy eyes shall not pity them, neither shall thou serve their gods, for that will be a snare unto thee. There's a lot said in that little portion here. Now, the strange word is Eiquev. Eiquev, and they use in the sense of because, and I can't think of any place else where you use it as because, and we know it's a hill. And the most common, comments coming from some of the sages is that, some laws and acts of commandments that we focus on but we consider the great ones and overlook the lesser ones that we don't deem too important. And one of the things is, I'll give you an example. What we consider a great command will be honor thy father and thy mother, so that days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. What we might consider something that's not so big is when you see a mother dam sitting on its young, in the nest, that you must make the mother flee from the nest, and you can have the young, but you must let the mother bird go, and so their days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. The reward is the same in both cases. One is easy to do. The other one is difficult to do, but they both have the same reward. And one of the things is that how do you really honor your parents? That's really difficult, but you find it the most important thing to do because you have benefited from them coming up in some stage, in a great deal of the stages of your life. With the other one, your benefit only going to be for a moment, and yet you still have the same exact reward. And it's a Talmudic story, but I'm not going to go into it now because there's so much stuff in it. Between a guy they call Alicia Bowie, I believe they call Aker, which means the other guy. And it's so some people might want to look into that particular story. It's very interesting, and he was a very observant young and very scholarly. And one day things just didn't work out the way he seen according to Torah. And after that, he started violating, but he still had his knowledge. But he still, he wasn't so observant in a lot of laws anymore, because he has seen something that seemed to contradict Torah. And it's basically dealing with the last scenario I gave about a bird sitting on his young. So for those, I'm not going to go into that particular story, but those might be interested, might want to, look that up. And then you could align it more with what I said with Ekanon, so to speak. So what we find out that the heel, what does the heel actually do? Now we know about Jacob grabbing hold of Esau's heel as they're coming out the womb. And we know, according to the Apocrypha, it's always a big discussion and considering, between the heel and the hand of Yaakov, in this, in futuristic outlooks, stuff like, I would say outlooks, between those two, that scenario. But the heel is the most overlooked part of the body. Most people don't think about the heels unless they actually get injured. But most of the times, you worry about your toes, you worry about your arches, you worry about your bunions, you worry about your shins, your knees, stuff like that, your arm and other joints. But very few people think about the heel. And yet the heel support the majority of the body. More than 90% of the body is supported by the heel. And we don't pay any mind. Sometimes, especially men might not even groom their heels, say, look, I want to smooth and everything like that, look at it. They really don't look on, pay much attention to it. But it's a very important thing, because without your heel, you cannot really stand up. And you definitely won't stand long. Even when you try to stand on your toes, you got to go back down on your heels in order to be more relaxed. So, and if you notice where the heels are on your body, you will realize that it will support, pretty much your entire body. So they use that term of support. That means right then and there, that it's like hinted on that we want, we want you to pay more closer attention and not to neglect a lot of things that might seem trivial, but you may not understand now, you would tend to learn about a little later on. So, and when they talk about being fruitful, from the very beginning, man was told to be fruitful and multiply. All right. And yet, so if the man was told to be fruitful and multiply, also, woman was supposed to be fruitful and multiply. And one of the most hard thing for a couple is when they be together and they can't have children. When they get together and they really have a strong bond and union, they get together in order to produce a family, to contribute more to another generation, as well as their happiness. So this is one of the things they talk about. And then they talk about the evil diseases of Egypt. Now, we know about the plagues, and we know about the things that happen, but what other things we're not privy to that happen down in Egypt? Because we know about malaria being a serious thing in most tropical and swampy areas and stuff like that. But that's just one area. But what other things might have, afflicted them? And the Creator telling us about that Moses telling us about those things that some of us actually had witnessed at the generation that he's seen, but the majority of the young people, young men, the new generation that was born in the wilderness, never been in Egypt. All they knew was the wilderness life. All right, so I'm moving forward. And so, and it says 17 verse, if thou shalt say in thy heart, these nations are more than I, how can I dispossess them? Thou shalt not be afraid of them. Thou shalt well remember what the Lord thy God did unto Pharaoh and to all Egypt, the great trials which thy eyes saw, and the signs and the wonders and the mighty hands and the outstretched arm whereby the Lord thy God brought thee out. So shall the Lord thy God do unto all the people of whom thou art afraid. And like I said, most of the people is a new generation here. All right. And then Moses goes on and talk about, other things that's going to getting rid of these people here. I'm not going to focus on it, but he's talking about bringing them out little by little. I'm going to just focus on this particular portion. It says, 22nd verse, and the Lord thy God will cast out those nations before thee, a little and a little. Thou mayest not consume them quickly, lest the beasts of the field increase upon thee. But the Lord thy God shall deliver them up before thee, and shall discomfort them with a great discomfiture, until they be destroyed. And he shall deliver their kings into thy hands, and thou shalt make their name to perish from under the heavens. There shall no man be able to stand against thee until thou hast destroyed them. The graven images of their gods ye shall burn with fire. Thou shalt not cover the silver or the gold that is on them, nor take it unto thee, lest thou be snared therewith, for it is an abomination to the Lord thy God. And thou shalt not bring an abomination into thy house, and be a curse like unto it. Thou shalt utterly detest it, and thou shalt utterly abhor it, for it is a devoted thing. That means that's one of the hard things to do when you destroying a people, and you can see this solid gold statue. You ain't interested in the statue. Say, I'm gonna melt it down and make some coins out of it, or I'm gonna melt it down and do something else with it. Well, the Creator, they don't want you to do that when you go into there and you know it to be such. Now, it's a lot of things you could speak on, and I'm not going to bring out a bunch of scenarios here because I want to get to another particular point, but I'm just going to leave this in passing, is that when, you find gold, pieces of gold in a particular land, not normally a gold pit, but, you just might find a pile, digging through a pile, and you might find some gold there. They said, do you ask, was that an idol that was burned down? And this is the remnant of it? And could I use it at that point in time? So those are some questions you would have to, think about, when you go into a land, because if you burning the land, the people and the idols down, you're burning it within your own vicinity, within the land that you're actually going to occupy. And so you're going to say, okay, I burnt this gold up, is it still okay now because it's no longer in the same, state it was before? When God calls something abominable, could it change now and not be so abominable? So, and it says not bringing it in your house, not even bringing it to the house of the Lord, but bringing it in your house. So these are some of the things we got to consider, going forward, in there. So let's look over the 8th verse. In the 8th verse, it talks about, and the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord swore unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God had led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might afflict thee, to prove thee, to know what was in thy heart, whether thou wouldst keep his commandments or no. Now, this is an interesting verse, because when people read this here particular verse, they think there's some things God don't know. Well, it's not the thing that, Moses is speaking to a people, and ever since God made man been making God in his image. And so in order for me to understand, I got to understand from where I'm at. So a lot of times, anthropomorphism, we use, human terms to describe God, so we could get a somewhat of a grasp of what we're talking about. So the thing is that there's no new information that you could give God. Even in the prophecy, it says, my thoughts are not, like my thoughts are not like your thoughts. For, as high as the heavens above the earth, so is my thought above yours. So that means right there, we think we trying to conceive of something, which is a big difference. And the reason we think, because we're looking at variables. And if a God, such as the creator, got to look at variables, if this don't happen, perhaps, I might have made a mistake. I got to have a contingency plan. We think of a contingency plan. A true God does not need a contingency plan. It's always the same plan. And that's one of the things as we're going to get into as we go further in here. And he afflicted thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna which thou knewest not, neither did our fathers know, that he might make thee know that man does not live by bread only, but everything that proceeds out of the mouth of the Lord does man live. All right, so now, when we eat, and one of the most important blessings that we say rabbinically is over bread. Some people today people trying to avoid bread as much because they talk about the calories, I think the glucose, whatever it is that's going on. So a GMO or something, whatever they got going on these days. But most people tend to avoid bread, but it was a staple diet, and it's the most general diet. And then also, as we're going to read further on, it's about, even rabbinically, this way they draw that if you had a bread at a meal, if you must say a blessing, but Birkat Hamazon, after the meal concerning bread. Most of us easy say a blessing before, but basically you must give a blessing concerning the bread. Rabbinically, they draw from that in that area there. So and they draw from when you eat and be satisfied, which you're going to speak about in passing, but that's not going to be my focus for today. But when he said, but every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Lord does man live, Moses is an example of that. Moses, as we're going to find later on, lived that experience, being in the mountain 40 days and 40 nights without bread or water, not even suffering hunger without bread and water. God talking continually. And this is what we realize, that God's word, invigorates and gives you life. So it's that kind of thing and Moses is talking not only from experience, but also sharing that in the beginning, God, when he created, it's always words. He said, let it be, while you eat, what I mean? So, and so when he says that a number of times in Bereshit in the beginning. Let it be. Basically, I think about 10 times he mentions, while you eat, and let it be. And he spoke things into, existence. Now, do God really need to speak? He don't have to. But the thing is that it is letting you know about his word created everything that we need to exist to this very day. So this is what we learn from this particular portion here. But he's sharing about the manna that we ate, that our ancestors had no idea about that manna. Jacob never had tasted manna. Neither did, Abraham or Yitzchak tasted manna. Not even the great Noah. And you figure Noah was in the ark for a year before he come off the ark. He feeding everybody else, but none of those creatures in that first world ever tasted manna. We are the first people that tasted something that was just for one time, that nobody else ever tasted except the mixed multitude that hung out with us at that particular time. And our animals, which made them more precious, more divine, because even the animals, when they, how much grazing are going to do in the wilderness, where sometimes be parched dry and and there's not a lot of grass and fields in there. And what's interesting is, did it rain for 40 years while he was out there? Rain is not even a concept of mentioning of a rain for 40 years, and they travel amongst the people. So that's something to consider as we go forward. And we pick it up, the fourth verse, thy raiment wax not old upon thee, neither thy foot swell these 40 years. Now, clothes don't last forever. And also, when some clothes last a good little while, sometimes they pick up a certain scent that that may not be pleasing and it's hard to get rid of. So when you think about the clothes, I mean, they still, for you to appreciate your clothes, it got to be somewhat fresh, and also you got to be fitted properly upon you. And then you're marching, and you might march at any given time. So that means that everyone, let's say if your feet did not swell for these 40 years, those people, that means everyone's pretty much physically fit. Can you imagine that you don't have no lame and crippled people amongst the nation for the 40 years that you're traveling within the wilderness? Not even the mixed multitude is crippled, but he's mostly focusing on Israel itself, that you had, that, your feet didn't swell. Now, normally, when you out and about from the morning to the evening, on your feet, your feet actually, do swell up a little bit, swells up a little bit. If you're on your feet for most of the day, your feet swell up a little bit, because your blood constantly, as though it's be pumping through the system, it's still what we call gravity. So imagine that most of us, and you see so many people today with, foot ailments and stuff like that, you might have corns, and me myself, I know, from being in that world of martial arts, that we have some serious, toe problems and stuff like that there, and then, if you ain't talking about toe fungus and all that. So that means that you got healthy feet traveling in a place that's not really suitable for most people to travel through for 40 years. And the Moses wants you to pay that attention, because most people don't pay attention to that. And thou shalt consider in thy heart that as a man chastens his son, so the Lord thy God chastens thee. All right. A lot of people say time out these days in time, but it's more to it than just a time out that we talk about these days in time. And one of the things is that when we talk about time out, this is one of the areas that we happen to have a problem with, that corporal punishment is necessary. These days, they say corporal punishment is not necessary. But yet, if you mess up bad enough in society, even as a youth, they put you someplace where sometimes the isolation, the lockdown is even crueler than the corporal punishment, in that area. And if they have to restrain you, that's, that means they have to tie you down, whatever the case is. That's still a sort of a corporal punishment to a degree. So we just think about just strictly the lashes alone. So this group, Moses is letting the people know that even at this particular point in time, that God did all this here stuff, suffer us to hunger, so we could, learn more about ourselves, and whether I'm gonna still be down with this God or not. Because a lot of people, when things go bad in their life, they quit. Say I'm not serving this way. I'm not interested in God. And most times, when you find a guy that's claimed to be an atheist, you got to say, okay, you believe your whole life is an accident. You don't believe you owe anything to anybody other than to yourself. And the only time you're going to respect anybody is if they do something for you, and then you might reciprocate. So when you think about an atheist, you think more of a self-centered individual. And most people in the ancient world wasn't that, in that sense, in that particular sense. And it goes on to say, and thou And thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord God, to walk in his ways, to fear him. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks, waters, of fountains, and depths, springing forth in valleys and hills, a land of wheat, barley, and vines, and fig trees, and pomegranates, and olives, and honey, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarcity, thou shalt not lack anything in the land, a land whose stones are iron, out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass, and thou shalt eat and be satisfied, and bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he hath given thee. All right. Before I go into 11, the stuff that's enumerated here, the actual species here that is enumerated, and everything have a symbolic meaning in itself. But it talk about wheat and barley. Now we know we got other grains that are mentioned about later on, the grains, say wheat, barley, spelt, rye, oats. Those are 5 grains that rabbinically you say a blessing over, that you make bread out of. Now you have rice bread or rice cakes. It's not those grains that's mentioned in the Tanakh. When we talk about the different fruits, like vines, which is grapes. All right. Now grapes, one of the things about grape wine, now we got the rabbis come with a blessing for almost everything these days in time, but basically they would consider, you would say, a blessing over wine, simply because the vine is basically one of the things that's mentioned here in the land, and so you would say, a blessing over wine. Now you might have, other drinks and stuff like that, which they have blessings that they say for different things, but basically this was the main one, that, the fruit of the vine. And also, when you talk about the olive, the olive is essential because not only that we use it for sometimes for fuel, but it's also a nourishing fruit too. So we use it for a lot of things in olive. And then it mentioned about the pomegranate. All right, the pomegranate itself, that's what the Kohen has at the foot of his meal. Between a bell and a pomegranate, and also each one of the fruits that's mentioned could represent Israel to a degree. All right, two mainly is the pomegranate, and the other one is the olive. All right, just to, for the lack of time, just point out those two. But I'm just speaking on the pomegranate for now because we don't speak on the pomegranate as much. But the pomegranate is rough on the outside. Then you got the pulp, inside. After you peel all that, then you get to the actual seeds, the fruits, where the sweetness is. That's actually like an Israelite, one of the children of God. Sometimes you might look at the exterior, look kind of rough. You peel away, it's still kind of rough. But you got to peel all that away to get to the sweet and the essence in it. And all of us have some essence within us, that's really good and unique. So we got to actually consider that when we look at each other and deal with one another in those frames. So let me just move on because, like I said, I'm watching my time as I go forward. 11th verse, beware lest you forget the Lord thy God, and not keeping the commandments, his ordinances, his statutes, which I command thee this day, lest when thou hast eaten and art satisfied, and hast built goodly houses and dwelt therein, and when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold multiply, and all that thou hast multiplied, then thy heart be lifted up, and thou forget the Lord thy God, who brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, who led thee through the wilderness, through the great and dreadful wilderness, wherein were serpents, fiery serpents, and scorpions, and thirsty ground, where was no water, who brought thee forth water out of a rock of flint, who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which thy fathers knew not, that he might afflict thee, and that he might prove thee, to do thee good at the latter end. And thou shalt say in thy heart, my power and my might of my hands have gotten me this wealth. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant with which he swore unto thy fathers, as it is this day. So Moses, knowing he's going to be over there, they're not going to see the presence of God like it was in the wilderness for the 40 years. I mean, when we cross over, we're going to have certain rules. And then when we talk about certain rules, when we cross over, we're going to have actual areas where actually that, most people ain't going to be around in the Mishkan often. So from week to week, most people will never see the Mishkan, because if I'm way up north, I'm not traveling way down to the territories of Yosef, or if I'm way south, I'm not traveling way up, westward north to northwest, rather, to Joseph's territory with the tabernacles over there. And other guys may say, I'm not crossing the Jordan River that should come over there in the tabernacle and be ready for Shabbat. So Shabbat, that's why Shabbat is referred to in all your dwellings. But most people won't even see the Mishkan. They say 3 times in the year that it's supposed to appear, and we're going to speak on it a little bit within this particular portion, but I might not get to it. And one of the areas is that if you appear 3 times in a year, then what's going on the other time? How many times you see it? And as most people only travel yearly, not even 3 times. Some people might not go that year. So it's very important to consider those things, because some laws, some things you got to make up for, which this chapter covers that too. This particular schedule covers up, with certain things you could make up for, and some things you cannot make up for. Now, if you're supposed to bring a certain offering at a certain time, you don't do it now, then there's no other time you can bring it except for the Passover, and you got 2 times to bring the Passover sacrifice, and that's the only time you get a second chance to do something that has a time constraint under it. All right, so just consider those things as we go forward. And let me just move a little further. All right. And shall be, if thou shalt forget the Lord thy God and walk after the other gods and serve them and worship them, I forewarn you this day that ye shall surely perish, as the nations that the Lord maketh to perish before you. So shall ye perish, because ye would not hearken unto the voice of the Lord your God. All right. And then I'm going to skip on down about the, well, I'm going to pick it up from here. But it let you know in the 9th chapter, that's going to be the beginning of the 9th chapter, so a couple of lines. Hear, O Israel, thou art to pass over the Jordan this day, to go and to dispossess nations greater and mightier than thyself, cities great and fortified up to heavens, a people great and tall, the son of Anakim, whom thou knowest, of whom thou hast heard say, who can stand before the sons of Anak? Know therefore this day that the Lord thy God is he who goes over before thee as a devouring fire. All right, so I'll let you know that, it's God that's going to be able to do certain things for you, and that we don't really have the power to do it on our own. And I'm going to skip down part of the 4th verse. It says, for my righteous, the 4th verse, speak not thou in thy heart, after that the Lord thy God hath thrust them out before thee, saying, for my righteousness the Lord hath brought me in to possess this land. Whereas for the wickedness of these nations the Lord doth drive them out from before thee, not for thy righteousness or for the uprightness of thy heart dost thou go in to possess the land, but for the wickedness of these nations. Now this is important to understand, because the Creator doing this and establishing his word with the people. In the last part of that, the 6th verse, God giveth thee this good land to possess it, for thou art a stiff-necked people. So we're hard, stiff-necked people. And one of the things is that because God do something for you and deal with something with somebody else, and you benefit from them being hurt, it's not because you're so righteous in that sense. And a lot of people look at tragedies that might happen to somebody they don't care for in their life, and they say, they must have did so and such wrong, this wrong, that wrong, and therefore they lost out on this, so now I can benefit from that, because I must be better than them because look where I'm at, look how I'm benefiting. No, when we left Egypt, it wasn't because we was righteous. When we left Babylon, it wasn't because we was righteous. Brothers read, and say often, I hear from time to time different teachers say that, those that return wholly determined in righteousness. If you determine in righteousness, that means you're not righteous. If you just determined to do that, that's your, that's what you want to do. But we left Babylon, Egypt, because time served, and we cried out to get out. We left Babylon, time served. We're going to leave the four corners of the earth when the Creator consider time had been served. And that's what it is. I mean, it's good, that we try to do the best we can to be the most righteous individual we can, so that we could say, okay, if I don't make it, one of my seeds and descendants can make it, and qualify in that area, to make it to the whole journey. But everybody leaving because the Creator gonna say, time had been served in this particular dispensation. All right. So we're gonna go ahead on and skip down to the seventh verse. No, I want to go a little bit further down because I'm looking at my time now. All right. All right. And just picking up from the 8th verse, because we know about the rebellions and all that. Also, in Horeb, you made the Lord wroth, and the Lord was angry with you to have destroyed you, when I was going up into the mount to receive the tablets of stone, even the tablets of the covenant which the Lord had made with you. Then I abode in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. I did neither eat bread nor drink water. So 40 days and 40 nights, not just daytime, not just nighttime. It was a continuous time, and Moses letting them know, God told him the first time he was up there that the people already, that you brought out, when us, had an idol in the camp. God already told them that while he was up there. Did Moses believe God? Or he didn't think it was bad as it was, since there's such great revelation? Because Moses up there for 40 days and 40 nights. All right, and people had to expect them to be up there that long. So the people expected him to be up there for 40 days and 40 nights, even if they might miscalculate it according to time. But they would say he delayed. When you say somebody delayed, that means they have an expected time to come back. Now you might have a different watch, or your watch might have got stuck. But the time frame is there, and we're gonna find out a lot more in this particular episode. So when Moses come down, this is 40 days and 40 nights. How do time affect Moses up there? Was he thinking about, I'm missing meals? Did he think about, I'm thirsty? Did he think about, I'm tired? Am I sitting down all this time while I'm in the presence of the Most High, or I'm standing before him, or am I prostrated before him? So all this time, but we're going to find out some other things that we bring out, in this particular portion. And then I'm going to skip on through this a little bit. And it said, and the Lord delivered unto me the two tables of stone, written with the finger of God, and on them was written according to all the words which the Lord spoke with you in the mount out the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. Now, this is important that most people don't tend to overlook. The exact same thing the people heard at Mount Sinai 40 years ago. It's the exact same thing that the Creator had wrote on those tablets. So the words that you didn't want to hear, and there's so many different, commentaries on it, but the words that you didn't want to hear, all that the Creator has spoken that day to those 3 million people plus, out there in Mount Sinai, that those items that, that he spoke, the matters that he spoke was written on those 2 tablets, the first ones that Moses had. So it's saying God didn't say one thing here and printed up something else over there. And that's what's so unique, that what God has said there that you heard, the contract ain't going to change. You don't have to look at the fine print. You know what I mean? When you get the contract. Because today, when you make deals and people promise you this and promise you that, it's okay. Now they got these clauses and conditions and fine print, and they're always so small. And it's basically going to say the same thing we said up there. No, I don't always basically say the same thing, but it say basically, no, I want the exact same thing. So also, no other ideology that exists that they could say that God wrote something down on stone for them to hold as saying, this is my word. We don't have that concept nowhere else in any kind of ideology that exists, that this is my word. Even, and I'm not trying to be disparaging, but even when you hear about the Islamic thing in the Quran, the Abel Gabriel's, teaching, Muhammad, the Quran and on a palm tree, he wrote on a palm leaf, and then the next thing, wrote that down, recitations. It never said that he was handed anything in the Quran from even the angel in their doctrine. We was handed something from our Creator to bring down. And Moses saying, just what you heard is what's written on this, And then so that's unique in itself. And as we go further, and it said with the finger God, that means he didn't have no adversary, no angel, that means that God himself imprinted something himself. And it say, my secretary gonna write this out, dictate what I'm saying. I'm gonna dictate and you write down, what I'm saying. It wasn't even something like that. So we should be really proud of the type of God we serve, how he actually, get involved. And it says, and on them was according to all the words which the Lord has spoken. Okay, we got that. 11th verse. And it came to pass in the end of 40 days and 40 nights that the Lord gave me 2 tablets of stone, even the tablets of the covenant. And the Lord said unto me, arise, get thee down quickly from thence, for thy people as thou hast brought out of Egypt and dealt corruptly. So we know that's the first time. And then we're going to skip on down. And what we find here, that after the sin of golden calf, the 17th verse, and it said, I took hold of the 2 tablets and cast them out of my 2 hands and broke them before your eyes. All right. And I fell down before the Lord as at the first 40 days and 40 nights. I did neither eat bread nor drink water because of all your sins which ye have sinned, and doing that which was evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him. For I was in dread of the anger and hot displeasure wherewith the Lord was wroth against you to destroy you. But the Lord hearkened unto me that time also. It's important. Now, this is the second time of 40 days and 40 nights that Moses did this, because now he come up and said, look here, I see how bad it is. So now he really petitioned. And it goes on to say, he don't stop there. He said in the 20th verse, moreover, the Lord was angry with Aaron to have destroyed him. And I prayed for Aaron also the same time. Now, this is something we didn't read about before, that Aaron was going to be destroyed by God. And when Moses came to Aaron, and we remember from back in Exodus, that he said, what did this people do to you to cause you to bring a great sin upon them? Now, and it say Aaron was about worshiping that idol, though he fashioned it, but cause you to bring a great sin on them. This ain't you. You brought a great sin on them, so you're responsible because you caused others to sin. So this is something that's really unique in that area. All right. And I took your sin, the calf which you had made, and burned it. So it seemed like a little different order that's being portrayed here, because when he came down, all that was done first before he went up. But he giving us more details about when he was up there the second time, for the second time. But this was immediate. When he come down and seen this here, he took care of things immediately and then go up. So, but as we tell the story sometimes you get a little bit more in depth in some details you might have omitted. And the order may not always be in the same frame. All right. Grind it very small until it was fine dust, and I cast the dust there into the brook that descended out of the mount, and at Taberah in Massa and Kibroth Hatava, you made the Lord roar. All right. And when the Lord sent you from Kadesh Barnea, saying, go up and possess the land I have given you, then you rebel against the commandments of the Lord your God, and you believe him not, nor hearken unto his voice. Now this seems a little bit out of order, in that area there. But let's go to the 25th verse. You have been rebellious against the Lord from the day I knew you. So I fell down before the Lord 40 days and 40 nights that I fell down, because of the Lord has said, I will destroy you. And I prayed unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, destroy not thy people and thy inheritance, and that thou hast redeemed through thy greatness, that thou hast brought forth out of Egypt with a mighty hand, remembering thy servants Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Look not unto the stubbornness of this people, nor to their wickedness, nor to their sins, lest the land whence thou broughtest us out say, because the Lord was not able to bring them into the land which he promised unto them, and because he hated them, he had brought them out to slay them in the wilderness. All right. Yet they are thy people and thy inheritance, that thou didst bring out by great power and by thy outstretched arm. Sounds a little different from before. Like I say, you see some differences as we deal with the story. Now in the 10th, at that time the Lord said unto me, hew thee 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and come up unto me in the mount, and make thee an ark of wood, and I will write on the tablets the words that was on the first tablets, which thou didst break, and thou shalt put them in the ark. All right. So I'm just going to stop right there in that particular area, because I want to focus on a couple more points in here. All right. And my little time. So one of the things is that we find that he say, well, if he broke the first tablets and God produced a stone and God wrote on them, and Moses broke them and cast them down and broke them, what did he do with the broken pieces? So according, they draw from the commentaries, in which I tend to, accept myself personally, that if this is actually produced by the Creator and written by the Creator, any piece of the relic is something very precious and special. So I ain't just break them and leave them there. I didn't break them, just cast them and dug them, and cast them aside, nobody touch them. So then when we look at that, this way you get the idea that both the broken pieces that was produced by the Creator And the second one was put within the Ark of the Covenant. We know the Ark was being prepared after he had the tablets. So the pieces that God produces as precious. And so people usually don't cast away, something like that, and it just disappear, so to speak. That's pretty much my view on it, but you could discuss it with your teachers in those areas there. All right. But God saying, what's interesting is that I'm not going to change my word. We only got one plan. We ain't got plan A, B, C, and D. We got one plan. We got one covenant. We ain't got no covenant 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's one covenant, one plan, one declaration. So therefore, I'm a God that changes not. So therefore, them tablets that you call about this time, since you broke them, and bring them up, and I will write on them again. Then I'll let you know that this time it'll be different. It'll be different because now you made a contributory factor, and you pretty much straightened out something that you did that you shouldn't have did. In that sense, for whatever reason, there's a lot of debate about why Moses broke the tablets and stuff like that, and no contract seemed damaged or void, or whatever the case is. But you could discuss those areas with your teachers. And fourth verse, and he wrote on the tablets according to the first writing 10 words, 10 matters. All right, Sarah Dibrim, which the Lord spoke unto you in the mount out of the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. And the Lord gave them unto me, and I turned and came down with them from the mount and put the tables in the ark which I had made, and there they are as the Lord commanded me. So now, where did he place them the first time? A lot of information. Because we didn't start building the tabernacle until after we was already, forgiven. Then we get the information of the tabernacle. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that area there. So just think about it. And, I'm always open for questions, and you could discuss them with your teachers. So it's basically 120 days of fasting, day or so in between. And I always say, if you calculate from the time of the third month to the time of Yom Kippur, you get roughly the day or two, 120 days, And when we start to actually build the Mishkan itself, it take a few months, basically roughly about 5 months, some give or take. And so we get a time frame in there. So Moses actually did this 3 times, fasting, for 40 days and 40 nights. First time, we knew he was going up. Second time, to atone for us. Third time, I got to get the stones from down here and bring them back up. And it's going to take me a while. You know what I mean? So 3 times of 40 days, and you only see a more detailed thing in this particular portion between the 9th and the 10th chapter of Devarim when he explained it. And the 12th verse it says, "And now, Israel, what does the Lord thy God require of thee? All right, but to fear the Lord thy God." Now let's look at that just a little bit. And I'm gonna have to get back to it in another time. But let's look at the things that's in reference to that. That we have God. It says ask, in the Hebrew. You know what I mean? So when we get into the 10th chapter, 12th verse. Let me just pull it up just a moment. Okay. Let me see here. All right. The 10th chapter, 12th verse. All right. I have my other book here. Well, let me get out this other book here. I got it. Okay. All right. Use the word, without Tasha Yisrael, Ma, Adonai, Elahekah, Shoel. Now, two things I had to explain it maybe next time when I get a chance if a question come up. Ma, they usually change the word from Ma to, the Mayah, which is 100. Because basically, traditionally, they do 100 blessings a day, and they say they come from the psalmist of David, which I don't have time to really get into in a few minutes I got left. But, just to focus on it because they take the olive from somewhere and they put the olive in there and they get the word Mayah, which means 100. And since when God asks us to do something, isn't a command that's something that he tells us, not something he asks. So some books have been passed what they require, but the word shoel is used here, which is asking, and this is some of the things that they would make some changes and comments on in reference to that, but and it says the fear, the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways and to love him and to serve the Lord thy God with all their heart, and with all their soul, and with all, with all their heart, and what's interesting, in the sense that when we get into the Kriyat Shema, and that's why I want to go to, I'm going to have to skip a lot of this and go into that in the next few minutes. When we deal with the Kriyat Shema, first of all, love, which is one of the things that's commanded here by Moshe, that it's a requirement. But then, how do you actually, love somebody? Command an emotion, and that's always a question about commanding an emotion. And then when it used the word fear, the word yah means fear, but also used in the sense of could be awe. So now you got some areas where you got, some Hebrew terms where you got yirat, hate, the fear of sin. All right. You got, yirat onesh, which is the fear of punishment. And both of these is about fear. You're afraid of doing something wrong, or being punished for it. Then you got, where in the sense of awe, the feeling when you have been faced with something huge or amazing. Then you got yirat, havron which means, the awe of greatness. In other words, ha'el, hagadol, hagibor, hanora. God the Almighty, the great, powerful, awesome. So we see that they both have an awe thing, but it's not the sense of being afraid. What I mean, like you cowering before it. But one of the things is that this is what and so why they use the term ask, because you got to have free will. Though you got commands here, this is what I want you to do. This is commanding you that you got to do this, but you have the free will to say no. Consequences, you don't have the free will to draw up the consequences. You don't have the free will to draw up the judgment, but you do have the free will to say no. And I often say, if God forced you to fear him, then is that fear? You're controlled. You're a robot. And therefore, it can't bless you for, doing right. And it cannot curse you for doing wrong, because you're doing as he programmed you to do as a robot. So free will is different. And I always make a distinction between free will and choice, because choice is limited. Free will say, I got my own option. I'm not taking, and I'm not going to be involved in it. So even if you have two choices, my third thing is that I'm not even going to accept those choices, at all. So that's free will, because now I'm standing on, on my convictions. So let me just read a little bit of this in the Kriyat Shema, which is one of the prayers that they say in the morning, and they usually say, Hear, O Israel. They say that twice a day, but it comes in 11th chapter, the 13th verse. But I just want to bring out some things here that's used. Now, the first paragraph we read, already from Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter, the 4th verse, and goes on. And you should love, the Lord your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. All right. Now, love itself in the Kriyat Shema, the first part that I read in last week's Sidra, with Ekanon, is always in the singular. And since it's in the singular, and there's so much stuff in here, this was supposed to be my focus, but it was just so much I wanted to touch on. That love itself is only used now in the book of Deuteronomy for loving God. Also, it's an emotion, and they say, Moses, commanding you, where over here it said what the Lord asked of you, but you're commanded in the Shema, and it's a declaration. Like I said, it's not a prayer, it's a declaration. And one of the things is that out of all the things, the first part of the Shema is in a singular. It's always about you, and in the second part, it's always, it's in the plural. First part focus more in general. I'm just going to be general pretty much. I'm looking at the time about the land. I mean, the first part is about the individual. The second part is about the land and the environment and stuff like that, in the plural. But the word, love in Hebrew is always in the singular, no matter where in the Tanakh. It's always the individual showing love, not focus on the community showing love, but the individual, about you, yourself, what kind of love you have for this creator. That's what's important. And then one of the things in the first part, in the singular, I use the word, skip on down here. Yeah, meodeka. All right. So the root, meod means very, sometimes the translation is your might, in that sense. So they talk about your soul, your heart, and your might. So now, how, that's emotional, in that sense, the love. All right. How do your soul actually does it? Your heart, you can feel it right there. But how all this here in the first part, it's pretty much the first two, heart and nafsh, your heart and your soul. That's actually spiritual. And meodeka, rarely, or to translate that's might, every essence, you say, okay, that means that now you got to get physical. Now, one of the things it talks about, and talking about, and about the teaching, all right, and and you talk about the diligent teachings that's done, and about inscribing on the gates in the first part, and then in the next part of the Kriyat, in this particular sidra, it focuses on the same thing, but at least the word me'od out. Now, the word me'od, the gematria for me'od is, basically, 441, 9. Then you add them up to sum it up to 9. That means that's the numerical value when you deal with the letters, itself, mem, which is 40, and then dalit, which is, aleph, which is 1, and dalit, which is 4. All right. So we know we count, we drop to zeros when we deal with gematria, which is 9, the number 9. All right. The word truth, emet, spelled with aleph, mem, and taw, it adds up to 9. Though we say the number is 441, which is sum it up to 9. 9 is the number of truth. So that means right then and there, that it's about the truth and the might that you deal with. And as we go into the second part, it doesn't use that word meodeka in the second part, and it also talks about some other things there too as well. Since not only it's in the plural, but it talks about in reference to the land, and they use a strange term, matar for rain. And when they talk about matar, we always think about Geshem as rain. All right, and it's a difference when they talk about the beginning rains and the latter rains and stuff like that in the particular Kriyat Shema. So focus on the land and your survival more so here. And it talks about the plural as a people. And one of the things that we look at is that when we talk about that that area there, matar is something that you get in seasonal, coming strictly from God. Where Geshem, as is defined by other terminologies, within our way of life, is that Geshem is like the condensation, water, evaporating, going up in the clouds and coming back down. So it's almost like I'm giving you a little something, but it's not the same as me coming directly from me. Because anytime torah is used, that means it's strictly God dealing with that directly as a whole. And when we think about the flood, the flood itself, that's the term that's used there. When we talk about the Malbuj in Genesis, Bereshit. One of the other things that when we talk about, where it gives you a description about teaching your children. I'll go back to the first one just a little bit and make a comparison. And when you talk about teach them, diligently, it talks about, in the evening, use the word evening in the morning, when you lie down and and use the word when you lie down, when you rises up. So when you lie down, rise up, you're talking about the evening. You rise up in the morning. So why they use the term evening and morning here for teaching, and yet, and speaking and stuff like that, when actually or meditating on it is actually when you in the daytime we get up and we start our day. But we know according to Genesis, that it's evening and morning. That's how our day start. So talking about when you lie down, what you do when you lie down. When you lie down, you actually focus on how my day went. Could I did more? Was it successful? And then I'm planning for tomorrow. So that's basically how we should be thinking. How my day turned out. Did I accomplish what I need to accomplish? Was I a failure today, or was did I exercise the day in the most prudent fashion, in a godly fashion? And then, okay, after I make that assessment analogy, taking my account and work on my day and my actions, then what do I plan to do tomorrow? To make it better. And so the Kriyat Shema is a lot going on in that, but I'm sorry I had to go just briefly in it. I hope you got some what I said, but it's two different things involved in the Kriyat Shema. And one of the things, like I said, is that we say it twice a day, basically. Even though you got different prayers they call Pesudei, Dezemra, then you got Shakari. All right, in the Shakari prayer, when you deal with the call of the prayer about Quran and Hamara, that's the call of the prayer. And you hear about the Muslims talk about the call of the prayer, but that's actually the prayer for Israelites. And then when you get in the evening, the afternoon part, the evening part, then it's actually the Ma'ariv prayer, we call it. That's when we deal with the Shema Yisrael again. So basically, that's why you will find that we declare twice a day. Hear, O Israel, the Lord of God, Lord is one. And also, when you talk about Mayah, when I mentioned earlier about Mayah, as opposed to what the Lord required, talk about 100 blessings. And they picked up from the Psalm of David, which, you could do the investigation. You would say, well, why put the aleph there instead of just saying Ma, and what the Lord asked in that sense. So I know I went kind of fast in it in a brief moment of time. So any questions, any mistakes by my own, I'm gonna greet you all in the early Shalom Aleichem, early Shabbat Shalom. And think about it, go over it, take your time and question it. And then, like I said, remember, it was 3 times Moses ascended, 3 times he went through that fast, 3 times, each time is to define here different things that he didn't define earlier. But that's, once again, Shalom Aleichem and early Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for all the condolences that came out.
Hallelujah. Torah about Nasik. Thank you for your dedication and for your love of Torah and for being strong in this way and being an example to all of us that come up after you, how to be a man of God and who serves God and stands even strong even in adverse times and in times when many wouldn't be able to. So we thank you for your stick-to-itiveness and for your love of Torah and your love of teaching God's people. Hallelujah. With that, all of you will be closing out this time, and we pray that the Most High God will bless you during this week, and we pray that the Most High God will continue to guide your thoughts, and prayerfully that the Most High God will bring us all back again next week, Yah willing, and I pray that the Most High God will keep us all safe. Hallelujah. Shalom, shalom.
Hallelujah.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers.